Freddie Fox, Bumpy Knuckles, what's good?
I'm good, brother. How you feeling?
No doubt. I was always the illest name to me, Bumpy Knuckles. You got some huge hands too, don't you?
I guess. I don't know. They're my hands. I guess who you put them up against certain hands, maybe so. I'm not a little
No,
guy though, so I guess that's why.
there was this picture of you in like Static Selector one day, and it was like you had your fist up, and like the hand just looked giant compared to him. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Crazy.
I think that was at SOBs.
Yeah, man. So how did you originally start rapping?
Um, just like it was something that I started doing in like sixth grade years ago. Man, that's when hip hop was bubbling in the city, and then a buddy of mine had Cool C. His name is Curtis. He had a tape of the Cold Crush 4. And I had rapped before, but it wasn't like I wasn't serious about it until I heard that. And I just thought it was the coolest thing, like to be able to, have a DJ behind you playing music and you got the mic and you the front man, saying rhymes. I thought that was dope. So I just started writing rhymes and going to these little neighborhood battles and stuff like that.
And where were you living at the time?
In Long Island.
Long Island.
Yeah, Long Island,
Okay.
yeah.
And what was like the area in Long Island like at that time? Like what was it like? Was it rough? Was it middle class? What kind of environment was it?
It was a nice neighborhood. It was decent neighborhood. It was better than the original neighborhood that I came from. Was a lot, lot more. It wasn't as nice. It was every few houses had a nice lawn, but it wasn't really. I didn't pay attention to stuff like that when I was young. I just knew I had a nice house that I lived in, no matter what it was, whether it was a small apartment or whatever, but the neighborhood itself wasn't as nice in one part of Long Island, and we moved to another part of Long Island, which was a lot nicer. And, you had your rough situations and your rough areas. It was still a ghetto, but it wasn't a ghetto in the context of, downtrodden or tore down type of ghetto, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's sections that you could go to in Long Island that don't look so nice, but then there's sections that look better. It's like anywhere you go though.
Sure. Now you yourself, were you, essentially a good kid, or were you getting, mixed up in some of the wrong crowds?
I mean, I was a kid. I did mischievous things. I did things, you know what I mean? And I did stuff, but I was all right. I was going to school and doing what I was supposed to do. You know what I mean? I just had issues with when we moved to Long Island, like in Babylon area, North Babylon area. It was a lot of racism in our school. It was a lot. That's what my issues were. My issues was, we had race riots in high school. You know what I mean? And then you had your friends that weren't with that. You had white friends that wasn't with that, but then you had that whole undertone of racism. So it was more that than anything else. It wasn't, it wasn't a bunch of gunplay and all that going on. You know what I mean? It was just a
Gotcha.
lot of racist shit,
So actual riots in the school.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of riots in our school. You could almost feel them coming, you know what I mean? Because, there was a time when the white girls started liking black dudes, and it was that going on, and then dudes wasn't, the white guys didn't like that. It was disco sucks shirts and shit like that. Remember those days? It was disco sucks, and we felt like disco was black music, so we stuck up for it. That's what we had, you know what I mean? And then when hip hop started, it was like that was starting to make a change a little bit, but it was still the concept of, it was the Pink Floyd, The Wall era type of things going on. So, but it was that kind of shit. We fought, we had fights. It wasn't too much of that gunplay going on and shit like that.
Sure. So you're growing up in this environment, you start rapping, and then what was like your first break in terms of just, okay, this could be serious here?
Well, we had already made a name, and I say we because I was in a crew, like my crew, like Supreme Force. We had made a name for ourselves in the neighborhood, and then locally, just when we showed up, people knew, it was other people too that were nice. But we were all, it was an elite group of MCs that were around, and then there was the guys that wanted to still get on that level. But we were jumping in. I was jumping into battles, and I was jumping into, you know, it wasn't ciphers at the time. It was more battles, setup battles. You know, Biz Markie was hosting battles in certain places. I was getting in battles and stuff like that. And the break kind of came when I signed with a management company called OT Fresh Productions. And they got me a deal with the Alim brothers on Nia Records. And it was a group deal that I did with Supreme Force for a single. And that kind of was really my first record, you know what I mean, that came out. And, you know, that was a break for me because it got people a chance for me to, you know, be seen. So it was that. And I was actually, to tell you something that probably people don't know is, Andre Harrell was looking for a rap group to be down with his Uptown stuff he was doing, and I know that we were presented as one of the groups, and he was like, "Nah, they're too hard. They rap too hard." You know what I mean? So when he said that, I suggested to OT Fresh Productions, which was Tony and Ulysses Sankets. I suggested to them that they look at Groove Be Chill because we're from the same town. So I told Tony and Uli to talk to a guy named Nate Tinsley. I introduced Nate to them. That's how Groove Be Chill met those guys and got up to Uptown, you know.
Sure. Now, I'd heard a story that you were supposed to meet up with Eric B and it didn't happen, and he ended up meeting Rakim because of that or something like that. Can you explain it?
Yeah, that situation happened after the one I just explained. How I met Eric B was, Eric was in Long Island for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I don't know what he was doing out there, but I know he was working with the BLS street van team or whatever he was doing promotion wise, or mobile DJ or something like that. And a friend of mine named Alvin Tony, you know, was with Eric, and he mentioned to Eric was like, "Yo, take me to, you know, the MCs out here that's dope. I want to meet the dope ones, the ones that's nice, because I got a project I'm working on and blah blah blah." So I was driving through Wyandanch, and Alvin flagged me down, and he had Eric with him, and he was like, "Yo, man, this is Eric B, and you know, he looking for somebody to do this project with him." And he told me to bring him to the MCs that I thought was dope. And I brought him, you know, I ran into him first. Then I told him, I said, "Okay, cool." So being that I was in a group, I was like, "Okay, we'll be there. You know, we set up a meeting." I said, "We'll be there." He's like, "Well, who's we?" I was like, "Me and, you know, the other two cats that I rock with." Eric was like, "Well, I just need one of y'all." So I didn't cancel the meeting, but I didn't show up because I felt like if he wasn't going to take all of us, it would have been kind of whack for me. I didn't want to bounce on my guys like that. So I kind of just didn't show up. You know what I mean? And then I think he met Rakim after that.
Okay, then the rest is history.
Yeah. Somebody owed me. I did I did hip hop a favor by not showing up.
Well, you ended up signing with MCA afterwards,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And Eric B actually produced on that album.
Yes, Eric was the executive producer.
Okay, executive producer of that album. So you guys still maintain contact?
Yeah, absolutely. To this day, yeah, Eric is a very good friend. I learned a lot from him, you know what I mean? I learned a lot from Eric. Eric kind of didn't just, you know, take me and put a record out. He was like, "Fox, I want you to learn the business, you know, and I want you to learn," you know, I used to go to business meetings and all kind of stuff. I was really a sponge around him because he was walking through a lot of doors that I didn't have access to, but I was with him, you know what I mean? So I learned a lot from him in that context.
Okay, so did he hit you afterwards and say, "Hey, I found this dude named Rakim, and I'm going to do a project with him"?
Well, actually what happened, it was strange. I got a call. My brother called me one day and was like, "Yo, man, meet me here. I want to talk to you about something." So I met my brother, Taheem, and he said, "Yo, Rakim want to talk to you." And I said, "Okay, cool." So I went, I seen Rakim in Wyandanch, and we was talking. He said, "Yo, man, we was listening to your tape on the bus. You know, we was banging your tape on the bus." you know, I think I want to do something with you. You know, I want to do some work with you, or whatever the case. I was like, all right, well, you know, just let me know, you know, and we'll do it, you know. So you know, in the meantime, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. It never really turned into that. It turned into more. Eric came and said, yo, I'm gonna put you in the studio to work. And I was like, okay, cool. He said, just work on your album or whatever. So I show up at the studio, and I found out later, like those sessions that I was doing, Rakim was supposed to be at those sessions, but for some reason he wasn't there. So I just kept working, and I ended up, you know, and I felt like I was rushing in a sense, like I wasn't doing my best work, but I was just trying to get it done under those time constraints. You know what I'm saying? Like studio time was always a different ball game. You know, you got a certain amount of time to get it done. And somebody else is in there after you. It's not like these new home studios. You do whatever you want as long as you want. So that's how I did my first album, and I just worked until, you know, I had an album finished, and I was able to mix it. And, you know, Patrick Adams was working with me, and a bunch of guys like that, you know, legends that were studio. I used to see Doc Rodriguez in the studio all the time. Like he was a master, and probably still is at what he does. But guys like that were around then, you know, and that's when I started meeting a lot of guys like the Fat Boys and KRS-One, and, you know, people were coming through that. Nas was in my sessions. I was doing stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like with guys like Akinelli and cats like that, Large Professor, you know, I started meeting guys like that, so.
Sure. You know, when you heard the Eric B and Rakim album, like, what did you think?
I thought it was incredible. I thought it inspired me, and it was energetic. You know what I mean? It was, you know, Rakim's rhyme style was unlike anything that anyone else had ever heard. I heard it because I knew what he did, you know. But I was listening to him in a group. When I heard him by himself on records by himself, I thought it was incredible. It was incredible, and the way the music was selected, you know, what music he rapped on. Like when he showed up to the studio to do what he did, it was like that was the topping to the cake. You know what I mean? Because Rakim was everything to me, in my eyes, everything that he's done vocally on those albums was flawless. Because that's really how he gets down. That's what he does.
Yeah, I mean, those first two albums were historic. You know, and the first album was like, God damn, what is this?
Yeah, it was different. It was like, you know, I was hearing guys that before us started using his rhyme style. You know, because it was so incredibly put together. His rhyme style was like it set a new trend for hip hop. There's very few rappers or MCs in this game who have done that. That when they start rhyming, the sound of hip hop changed. You know, two off the top of my head is Rakim and Busta Rhymes. You know, when Busta Rhymes started doing, and I would say maybe Biggie, but I'm not 100% sold on that as I'm sold on Rakim and Busta. Because when Busta did Put Your Hands Where Your Eyes Could See, the sound of hip hop to me changed the way guys were rapping. They were taking more chances.
Like I just interviewed Redman, and we were talking about how, well, it seemed like when Das Effects came out, it was like the next shit. It seemed like everyone wanted to rap like Das Effects at that point. Remember, it was just one of those things where it's like, it was like the next level in hip hop.
Yeah, yeah. They set a trend. That's why they was like, you know, they was like all of us, we were very valuable assets to the Hit Squad brand. And they definitely helped carry that Hit Squad brand.
People were starting to rap like Das Effects when they came in.
Yeah. And the reason I short pick it is because you got to really think about the talent of the MC that's on the mic rocking. See, a guy like Rakim came out in an era when it was a lot of party rocking records going on. You know what I mean? Like you talking about before he was after the Melly Mel's and the Spoonie G's and the, you know, all of those guys had already been out and made a reputation. Maybe not so many big records like that, but when Rakim came out, it almost flatlined all of those old flows.
Yeah.
His rhyme style flatlined a lot of old flows and made people think about how they pattern their lyrics, you know? So I mean, I always gave him his props for that. I never not give him his props for that.
Right, because then you also have Cool Mo D, Big Daddy Kane, other dudes that were just came completely different. You know, were scientific with how they put their shit together.
Yeah, exactly. And even with I remember Spoonie G did a song. I can't remember the name of the song. He was rapping like Rakim on the record. And I was like, I thought that was a compliment in my eyes. I'm like, wow, that's dope. Like, here's a cat from my hood, you know, who was so instrumental in changing the sound of what we call a culture, and becoming which led to people be saying that he was the greatest ever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm actually proud of that. You know what I mean? I'm proud of it because I know him. You know what I mean? Like, I know him.
Yeah, and you were part of that whole movement, you know, with Eric B and everything else like that.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So you came out with your album on MCA, and did it do what you were hoping it to do, or not really?
It did what I wanted it to do. It got people to see me. I didn't care whether it sold or not. I could tell by the way they were handling me that it was only a favor deal for Eric. You know what I mean? I could tell that, but I wasn't emotional about it. I was more looking at it as a strategic thing where, okay, I can springboard off of this to my next thing. You know what I mean? And then I was disappointed in the sense that when you're young and you get your first record deal and it's a major like that, you expect them to handle you like an artist, you know? And I thought I was disappointed in that. It wasn't what I expected it to be as far as being on a record label. You know what I mean? They put you in the office in these nice meetings, and then you do that 1 or 2 times, but you realize this is all bullshit. This is like, you know, they have their favorites that they're working, you know, people that they sign that they really push. But I felt like they did Eric a favor deal. You know what I mean? Whether the music was good or not was irrelevant, because it wasn't going to be anything more than what they wanted it to be, because this is about keeping Eric B happy. We'll give him a check. You know, I made some good money. I made a few dollars, you know what I mean? And that was the beginning of me learning the business as I was trying to do, you know what I mean?
Gucci's absolutely the boogeyman of hip hop. Like, it's just certain individuals, you just know that at any given moment, it could go left.
Right.
Gucci's one of them. T.I.'s one of them. I told y'all that before. I don't know why y'all keep acting like T.I. ain't Gucci level crazy. Maybe
T.I. is Gucci level crazy.
Gucci might be T.I. level crazy.
You mean to tell me that if I walked up to your mother right in front of you and shot her in the face, and then I left the country and you can't get to me, you wouldn't tell the police?
Hell no, where your mama stay at?